There are certain things that during the course of a lifetime of running you learn and say, oh, how did I not know that? Like a eureka moment that helps make running make more sense. This channel is all about trying to give you a different angle or something new to think about. So we racked our brains and we've come up with the 10 things runners should know, but probably don't. And the deal is, if any of these are new to you, subscribe to the channel and join the journey. If you want to, obviously. Let's get started.
One thing I fortunately found out very early while I was at university is that no two hearts work the same way in exercise. So your heart is entirely individual to you. So there's a few things that you need to do with that information. And the first thing is not to use any generic calculation to calculate what your heart rate zones are. 220 minus age, load of rubbish. And in fact, don't even let your Garmin watch calculate it, because Garmin cannot do the job of getting your heart rate zones completely specific and accurate. Mine are way out. The only way to get your zones accurate is by doing a test. What does that mean, Mary?
It means you gotta go dark, go brutal.
Oh, I was not expecting that. What I meant was a 5k time trial or some kind of test so that you get your accurate zones. And I'll pop a link up here of the way that you can accurately calculate your heart rate zones and not leave it to chance. So don't go around comparing your heart rate with other people's. Just because yours is 168 when theirs is 148 for the same effort, it means nothing. It's entirely specific to you. So be specific about your testing and get your right zones.
Now I'm aware I'm about to contradict myself on this one, but just go with me for a second, because I stand by the fact that I've always said, if you want to start running, grab a pair of trainers and run. But now the caveat that there are a whole load of different trainers for different ways of running, and actually if you want to get the best out of your running, then you probably need to know. Now depending on how you land, for example, if you land on the inside, that means you're a pronator, outside supinator, and all shoe brands make different types of trainers for those different types of runners. If you land on the outside, perhaps you want a little bit more shock absorption and cushioning. Land on the inside, maybe more stability. So it's well worth looking into the brands, and also go into a local running store who are going to tell you how you run and then recommend the type of trainer that is the best suited for you. So could be pronator, supinator, neutral, I'm a neutral lander, and then you kind of can look on the websites of each of the different brands and find out what shoes are best for you. You came into running and you're warned things like heel striking is the quick way to injury or rotation is bad. And while that can absolutely be true, if you run long term and you don't pick up injuries, is it a bad technique? The truth is, there is only good or bad technique for you. We all move in different ways with differing muscle strengths and patterns. So if you're running and it's painful or you get injured, then yeah, perhaps you need to look at your technique and see if you can improve it to stop the injuries from happening. But if you run with a heel strike and arms that swing across the midline, but there's no pain and there's no injuries long term, then you don't really need to change it. In fact, changing it could lead to an injury if it was done without proper guidance. So don't let anyone tell you that you've got a bad technique if you're running pain and injury free. It's simply this: it's good or bad technique for you, not for all.
How about this one? Have you ever wondered what that extra hole is for in the trainers that you have but you never use it? Well, it's called a heel lock or runner's loop or lock lace. And what it essentially does is locks your feet in place in the shoes to prevent you from getting blisters or other injuries you could get from running. So if you run a lot of trails or you do pick up blisters easily, then this is definitely a fix for you. And it's pretty easy to do as well. All you do is put the lace back through the extra hole on each side of the shoe, then feed the lace over the shoe and through the loop on the other side, pull it tight, and then tie your laces, and honestly your feet will be locked in. There'll be no more pushing on the front of the shoe with the toes or getting blisters on the heel because the heel is moving around a lot. So if you do a lot of up and down in your training or you pick up blisters easily, this is the fix for you, easy. Here's one that runners often find quite a revelation, and I did when I found it out back in the day, and that's that when you get injured, sadly it's an inevitability, but when you get injured, it is not often the area of the injury that is the problem. So think of the body like a chain, and when it's put under stress, as with a chain, it's the weakest part of the chain that breaks. So you could have an injury down here in your calf that is actually caused by a tightness in your hip or even in your glute, and it all pulls everything just out of whack enough for the calf to be the weakest part to give way. So once you've established that where you're injured is not necessarily the problem, here's 3 things you can do. And the first thing is, don't stretch that area. Think of it like this: if you're stretching an injured muscle, you're pulling it apart a little bit more and stopping it from healing quickly. So what you've got to do is stop stretching it for a while, let it heal, let the pain die down. Then when the pain has died down, a comprehensive strengthening program focusing on all the muscles in the lower leg, not just the one that you think is injured, to make sure the same thing doesn't happen again. And then if you're still worried or still having problems, it's a gait analysis, running analysis done, because usually where you think the problem is not where the problem is.
Now here's something you usually don't know until it's too late, but if you're training for hillier races, whether trail or road, then it's not the uphill training or the hill reps that needs all of the focus. If you really want to have your best run on trails, you need to practice downhill running a lot. Running downhill is a skill in itself and it needs practice, but more than that, the constant braking forces and decelerating going through your legs can tear them to shreds. It's a combination of impact and controlling movement, and it can be the quick route to fatigue, cramp, and just downright pain. And yes, the up is very important, but I'd argue the down is where the difference is made. So still invest in hill reps, but be sensible and add in some reverse reps on the downs. Trust me, your legs are going to thank you come race day.
One of my absolute favourites is that caffeine is the ultimate legal performance enhancer. I didn't originally know that, but I do now, and I make the most of it because I love a coffee. And the good thing is you can train your body to be responsive to caffeine, just like you can train your legs to run farther or train your gut to cope with gels. You can do the same with your body. So if you drink a lot of caffeine, you can cut back so that when it comes to drinking a coffee or a caffeinated drink on a big training day or race day, boom, your body will respond. Caffeine has 2 main roles. It's a stimulant and it masks tiredness. So it's a double whammy.
And if you don't like coffee, although I don't know why you wouldn't, there are other options. So you can take caffeine gels or caffeine tablets. Just be careful and practice with them and don't overdo it. But for all those coffee drinkers out there, cheers.
Across the board, if doctors could prescribe one thing that they know would cure most common ailments like stress or injury or viruses, etc., it's going to be sleep. It is a superpower and it's often overlooked, and in some cases it's actually ridiculed as for the weak. But the evidence is very clear. The better you sleep, the better life is going to be. You're going to recover better from your training. You're going to have better quality sessions and general life. It's the cornerstone to good running and life quality. And we all have varying needs, but general consensus is between 7 to 11 hours depending on the individual. Less than 7 hours is sleep deprivation and the fast track to injury and lower quality life in general. So when you're looking for the best way to recover from a hard week of training or an injury, look no further than your bed and get in it and sleep properly. Night night.
Probably the tip that I've learned the most recently, as in within the last 6 months, is something that was quite revelatory, and it was because I kept getting blisters in longer races. I kept getting kind of friction problems and my feet hurt, and so I reached out to some ultra marathon running friends and asked them, how do you stop these blisters from happening? And the answer was not what I expected. And it actually comes down to foot health and care. I think what I mistakenly assumed is that a foot with calluses and hard skin is going to be much more able to deal with the rigors of training and racing, but it's the other way round. It's actually a foot that's well cared for is less likely to develop blisters, is less likely to develop hard skin areas or problem areas, and that was a revelation to me. So nowadays I moisturise my feet in the lead up to races. I have regular pedicures, I have regular foot massage. I'm not even embarrassed. I think it's actually been one of the key changes I've made in what I do to make sure I can survive to the end of long distance races. So that was a revelation, and it was a very recent revelation.
And in the category of things that people often learn the hard way is that your gut is trainable. So when you're starting to use gels, don't let one bad experience in training or even in a race put you off, because you can train your gut to get used to the right gels for you and fuel yourself well. When you first start out, you might find a gel that you like the taste of or the look of, but it just doesn't work for you. But there are so many different gels out there that do different things, that have different textures and flavours and work in different ways. So you just need to experiment and find out what works for you.
Don't give up.
Don't give up. When I was at UTMB last weekend, I met a guy who was crewing for the runner who came third in the 100-mile race, and he was watching the winner of that race, a Chinese runner who took 60 gels in that race. At every aid station he took 6 in a row. Boom, 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 boom. 2 glugs of water and go. And the thought of that is insane. Like, how does his gut cope with that? But that just goes to show that you can train your gut to take on gels and to get used to them and use that in your racing.
And if you like that video, then you're definitely going to like this video, which is the 9 hard truths of being a runner. And I think number 9 may surprise you, but hopefully not actually. And all that's left for us to do is wish you a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Here's to 2023.
From us, Jessie and Winnie, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, if you're watching this at the time it goes out.